Welcome everybody once again to our Monday market prep or market analysis video. Now today we are going to discuss gold as well as SPX, both because we're seeing a very strong fundamental reaction from some of the recent events that we have seen take place in the market. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to show you guys the whole entire article that I was going over, but there is a small review here on trading economics, which I'm going to show you guys, and it gives you a quick summary of what has been going on from a fundamental perspective. Now, let's go over this really quickly before we even talk about the price action, right? And I want to see, because I want to get a little bit more interactive with you guys. So in my Zoom and in the Discord, I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Do you guys remember about me talking about the tariffs and everything that has been going on with Trump and all of the uncertainty? I would love to see a yes or no in the LUT classroom here. Yes. Okay, so remember how I told you that the tariffs, all of that is, of course, more on the uncertain side, right? It's bad for an economy. It can bring a lot of trade wars, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. So all of that uncertainty has been fueling gold to go towards the upside. Now, I say this a lot, especially in my community when we do live sessions. You have to be prepared for both sides of the picture. You're gonna have on one side, okay, we have tariffs, and that brings uncertainty. But when you have the opposite, obviously vice versa, when you have maybe some trade negotiations, some deals being made, that's going to be more on the optimistic side. So right away, that gives you a basic answer to what you're looking at on the market. On one end, you can see gold very, very bullish for multiple months. We can see if we were to go here on the monthly time frame, we can see gold has been bullish all year long, right? Again, because of that tariff uncertainty. But all of these little pullbacks, and especially the pullback that we're starting to see right now, which we'll start talking about the price action now, all of these pullbacks usually have come from Trump going against his initial word. And here it's not going against his initial word, it's more him doing some more trade deals with China. So look, I'm going to show you guys this. And it's the reason we're going to also talk about SPX because it's the same exact thing. US stocks skyrocket with the S&P 500 soaring 3.2%. Again, we won't read the whole entire article. There was a larger article, but that's a quick summary right there. Again, because of the US-China trade deal. So I've said this for literally for weeks. If you have any sort of optimism, any sort of trade deals coming into the market, then that's when on gold you can expect to see some of these pullbacks. So that's why over the past couple of, we could say pretty much just like the past session, because it's only Monday, market just opened yesterday about 24 hours ago, but we've already seen quite a large move on gold. Like we can see, for example, look, so this is market open right here. As soon as market open, price basically gapped down into the 3270s. And now we have reached a very strong area of reaction, which again, from a technical perspective, we're going to talk about that now. So again, you can see how on both sides of the picture, again, to repeat myself one more time before we continue here, you have the tariffs, which a lot of them brings uncertainty, and which is why gold has been so bullish all year long. And then you have the trade and the tariff optimism, which is when you see those trade deals like the one that I just showed you. And so again, you see the difference in that price action. So for now, with the price action, let's go ahead and actually start to analyze what has been going on more from a technical perspective. From a technical perspective, we can see that gold reached these all-time highs. You can see that right here. We'll mark it up, but we don't really need to have this level because it's very, very far away, but we'll mark it up anyways. You can see basically price doing like this double top pattern formation here from a technical perspective on gold. When price reached these all-time highs, again, we saw some of that optimism coming back into the scene. Gold started to do this large pullback. For me, this is a good example of how markets are never, in my opinion, they're never really random. They usually go and test previous areas of interest. We can see that happening right now, where you saw price at first over here kind of making the support for us. And now price, if we are to zoom into the lower time frames now, like the 4 hour and the 1 hour, I'm sure we're going to be able to find some sort of like support probably around this area around here. I could be wrong, but let's go and test that out now here. On the 4 hour, I'm gonna go ahead and move this area so we can make this nice and neat. right here. We're gonna mark this 4 hour support, which is the 32.23 area. And then this support, I'm gonna go ahead and move it down just a little bit. So that way we can get where we have like all of these wick rejections. Let me just zoom in a little bit. You can see price having a lot of wicks around this area right here, a lot of rejections around this area. And then price now on the previous 4 hour, we've seen some wicks being left here as well, right? So again, it's important for us to know. Let's go into the 1 hour because I'm not seeing too many crazy zones here on the 4. I'm assuming there's going to be a zone around this area based off the minor reaction that we got here and off these previous reactions around here. But let's go ahead and actually look at that on the 1 hour. All right, so that's good. So yeah, so on the 1 hour, we can see 3280s more or less. Yeah, the 3280s is where price has this price sensitivity area. Again, we can see it with all of the current reactions that we got around this area. Now, this is where I wanted to zoom in and show you guys, which is interesting to me. Price of gold has done a large pullback. Yes, we are in this pullback phase, sort of like what we did over here. Let's just call this the pullback phase. Okay, where price is making lows, highs, lows, highs, lows, highs, right? That's the pullback phase going against the overall structure of the market, which is more on the bullish side, right? So we all can see that. Let me know if you guys agree. After price got to this area, look at what happened here, which is something that we should be on the lookout for, of course. So it doesn't mean that we're going to just turn bullish because we have an area of support down at this 3208 area. But what is interesting to me is that price, for one, did basically reach that zone. It kind of, got to around that area. It's sort of, we can call it like around the 3200s to kind of put out a key level or a psychological level out. Price got to this area again. From this area in the past, we've seen price rally very, very strong. When we see those strong rallies, where do we see more buyers stepping in other than this area of support here? Can anybody answer that for me? I'm gonna ask the question one more time. Other than this area of support here around the 3205s, where else would you consider seeing more buyers stepping in? I'm going to give you some hints. We have the support here, which I said that wouldn't be it. We have 3220. We have 3245, we'll call it. And then we'll have 3280s. Where do you think more buyers would step in if price is to reach this zone? Let me see if you guys in the Zoom or if you guys in the Discord can answer that question for me. Don't worry, I'm going to answer for you and I'm going to explain why as well. Can anybody tell me that? Well, I drink some water here. See a few people typing. I'm gonna wait for you guys to type. In my Discord, come on, guys. I know you guys know. For my Discord people, the question can be a little bit different. Where would be the adaptation point for us to see more buyers stepping in? Like, where does price have to get above for us to be convinced that, okay, we do have more signals of buyers stepping into the market from a technical perspective? I'm gonna give you guys literally 1 minute, and if not, then I'll just give you guys the answer and I'll break it down to you guys. But it's literally right here. It's in front of us. The answer is right there in front of us. 3240, 100%. Yes, 3240s, 3245. Now we ask ourselves why. And it's always, this is very important, especially if there's any new beginners in here. 3240 is going to be a key price area. And when we ask ourselves why, always look at the past. What happened in the past when price got above 3240? Look where price got here. 3240 created a resistance, minor resistance. Price did a pullback, couldn't get above it. When it did break above that area and closed above, it was basically gone. Basically, 3240, you never saw price again, right? Over here, same thing. Price, after this large pullback, got to this same exact area of interest. When it got above the 3240s, you saw, let's zoom in here. You saw a minor move towards the upside, but a break in structure, which is important because here you have this bearish technical structure, which let me just skip over to over here. This is more on the bearish technical structure, right? But you can see when price got above the 3240s, you can see price again had a minor move towards the upside before never really like it didn't really break lows and then continue. No, it kind of just did a minor pullback after it broke above the 3240s, sort of retesting these previous lows. Again, a back above 3240s, another rally that we see there. So again, looking at the market very objectively, of course, right now we're seeing a repeat in history. Again, doesn't mean we're going to be buying, but we have to be on the lookout for this. We're getting the bounce off of this area. We have the resistance and the reaction at the zone. So that means buyers have tried to get into that area, but they failed, meaning below this area, we have more sellers stepping in. That's valid because if we look at the current structure, what does that look like? That's more on the bearish side, right? So that's bearish. So that makes sense. Okay, below the 3240s, that's valid. That could be more on the bearish side based off the current reactions that we're getting. But based on the past, with what we have seen, we can see easily if price gets above that area, again, we're gonna have at least some opportunities to look for buys. But above the 3240s, we could easily start to see more buyers stepping in. And then someone else mentioned this as well, above the 3280s. Once we start to get above that area, then we know we can most likely just start to extend that bias higher, most likely to retest some of these previous areas. But below the 3240s, for now, because we are seeing optimism within the markets, we are going to be more on the bearish side. So that means be on the lookout for some further sellers stepping in below those 3240s. Let's be on the lookout for more sellers below the 22s, sorry. So below 3220s. And then if we can get back below into this area here of support, but then most importantly, we have to be breaking and closing below. That's where we know we'll be able to extend that bearish bias further. So let's just mark this up here in red. So that way we have that visual representation for us. Again, because this is a very strong area of support, always be on the lookout in case price does get to this area and bounce. But other than that, we should be on the lookout for some adaptation, some buy adaptations above this area. Another thing that I did want to point out that I'm noticing right now, although we are getting that exhaustion here and that resistance being made, again, we did have the bounce. We have a minor break of structure here on the 1 hour here. And we are failing to get any new lows here so far. So again, if we do not reject this area here and then start to see a sell-off from there, again, be on the lookout for further buys and some further bullish structure potentially being created, at least up into these areas right here. Now, before I move on with gold, let me know if it's all good, if you have any questions. I think that was a pretty clean breakdown, fairly simple. We even talked about some of the current fundamentals. Let's use that same fundamental information and go on to SPX. You guys ready? You guys good? Let me know. Mac, I just saw your answer, 3271. The right answer was more 3240. This was the adaptation point. All good. Okay, okay. Let's move on to SPX. Same exact concept, guys, from a fundamental perspective. The whole entire majority of the year, we were talking about how all of this uncertainty is not good for the stocks. It wasn't really until later on into February that we started to see a lot of that uncertainty coming into the market. All of that, I believe this move down here, and you can go and back test this yourself. If I'm not mistaken, it was Liberation Day, which is the day that Trump came out and basically put a tariff on all, if not most countries. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of tariffs, a lot of trade wars, a lot of things were going on. But then trade talks started to come in. You started to see trade negotiations. You started to see deals being made. You started to see Trump saying, you know what, we are going to tariff you, but not until 1 month from now, 2 months from now, whatever the case may be, right? Now, again, recently we've had a lot more optimism. Look at the stock market. We've basically had a complete correction of Liberation Day, meaning that the fear is not inside of the markets anymore. So we should have been already, and we have already talked about this, we should have been more on the adaptation for the buys on the stock market because we haven't seen any further escalation in any sort of trade wars. We didn't see any escalation in the Pakistan versus India. That's another thing that I forgot to mention with gold. We saw Pakistan versus India. That's something that, that could have triggered a war and like global conflict, which is going to be something that's very bad for markets. So in those times, gold can skyrocket. Those deals, sorry, not those deals, but that specific conflict, it was handled. A ceasefire was put out. I think there was some talks there with the US getting involved, right? Coming out and saying, you know what, stop this madness, blah, 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 blah. They stopped it. So again, that's optimism coming into the market. So from a technical perspective on the stock market, again, you can see it right here in front of your eyes. That's why it has been so bullish. So now what we got to do is start zooming in, and let's go ahead and mark off some of our zones of interest. So we have 55.84s more or less around here. We have that support. We have this resistance that was created around this area here. I have a previous resistance over here as well, which I want to mark off. And then let's go over to the 4 hour and take a look at this. So on the 4 hour, this support makes sense. This resistance, I'm going to leave it as it is because we do have resistance being made here. This was resistance being made. This is like a fake out because price broke above, closed above. Next candle right after that, let me zoom in so you guys can see. It closed right below it. So that means that price clearly didn't have enough volume to continue pushing above that area at that time. So that was our resistance. Price again creating this resistance for us until we finally saw market open, that whole entire trade deal thing happening over the weekend. Now you see a price gap up into this area, right? Another area that I'm going to mark off here before I move on to the 1 hour, going to be this area right here. And then we have where price is currently reacting. This previous area of resistance, it was a support, it was a support. If we zoom out, we see plenty of other reactions off of that area as well. That area is 58.53s, more or less. And then last but not least, we'll do a 1 hour on SPX here. On SPX on the 1 hour here, if anything, we could move this up slightly. I don't want to move it up too high because we do have, okay, we could move it up a little bit more. Yeah, just I literally moved it up a few points, and it doesn't make much of a difference. I just wanted to get this tap right here of this price point. So more or less around this area. We know that this is where that gap came from. So it is possible that if price is going to be doing corrections, if it gets below 57.87, we could see a correction possibly down into this move before continuing to push towards the upside, right? So something like that. We'll just leave this in white. Other than that, because we're more optimistic and because price is clearly very bullish on the stock market, we'll just be on the lookout for, again, any sort of pullbacks against this price action. Previous lows right here. Just be on the lookout for further buys and further buys above this area as well. So the only sells you got to be on the lookout for is if price starts to reject this area right here, and if it starts to get below this area as well that we have marked off. So that would be it, guys, for our analysis session. We did a pretty good breakdown for gold and for SPX, both from a technical perspective and from a fundamental perspective, without overcomplicating anything. We have broken that down fairly easy. And another thing that you guys gotta be on the lookout for is CPI. We do have CPI tomorrow. I believe PPI is this week as well. So definitely be on the lookout for those inflation reports. You will see strong volatility during those reports. So at least majority of the times you do see very strong volatility. Do I trade Asian? I do not. I don't trade Asian hours. I trade strictly New York session. Strictly New York. I think I've traded maybe like once or twice this year during Asia or London. Literally maybe like no more than 3 times. And I think I had like 2 break-even trades and like 1 loss, something like that. So after I took that loss, I remember it was just kind of like, yeah, let me just stick to what I do, which is New York session. I'll go ahead and stop the recording here.